Hello, fan darling viewers, it's Jen here at Chucker Joy. This time I'm reviewing Monster by Martinez. This is an absurdist fantasy novel. It's set in like our contemporary world, but in a world where magic and cryptological beings exist. But also the humans kind of forget about them, and so it could also just be our world and we're not noticing that magic is happening around us. It centers around Monster, who is basically an animal catcher for all of these cryptos, all these biological, magical creatures, fantastic beasts, if you will. He's, animal control for Yetis that are found in freezers. And he encounters Judy, who is a normal human who keeps forgetting about magic, but for some reason all of these magical creatures are basically stalking her. And every time she encounters one, she also forgets about it. The more it happens, the more she starts to remember that something is weird happening and starts to remember Monster, since he's like human. The book starts off with Judy working in a supermarket, and she finds a Yeti in the freezer just casually eating all the ice cream. And she calls animal control, and then they roll her over to the specific division that deals with cryptobiological creatures, and Monster shows up. Monster is pretty gruff and antisocial and works basically alone, except for he has this companion in this paper gnome called Chester. Chester is actually a being from another dimension that just interacts with us in our world using a paper body. And he mostly takes a gnome or a human type shape, but he can also fold himself into like a bird or something if he needs to like fly. So like origami type shapes. Chester is definitely more knowledgeable and the more grounded character, despite being paper and from another dimension. But his interactions with Monster, he was so gruff, or like so hysterical and funny. Judy's pretty normal. She's like every person, every woman, but she has like a ton of bad luck. She's constantly losing jobs. This is why she's working at a supermarket. Not that she couldn't work at like a different job, but like bad luck always is following her around. And apparently some of that is this magic that she can't remember happening. And so she just remembers that something bad happened. She doesn't necessarily remember all the details. Or, like, her brain will block it out. So, like, there's a scene in the book where, like, a house catches on fire because of cryptos. Like, some flame-breathing animal, I think, like, just attacked the house. And that's why it's on fire. People just remember it's, like, a gas leak or something, and that caused a fire. Like, their brain rationalizes it as something that they can fit into a normal world where magic doesn't exist. So the fact that Judy and other normal humans can't remember magic is like the thing about this book that makes it really interesting and also really funny. In this book we also have Lotus, who is this 90-year-old cat woman, but she's also definitely hiding a secret, and we definitely feel like there's something wrong with Lotus, and that she wants something from Judy. Lotus is this interesting character because she comes off as like just perfectly unassuming, the old woman who lives next door and just like takes care of her cats and keeps to herself and her garden. But then also she's harboring this secret, and this ends up leading Monster and Judy into this conflict that ends up having really cosmic ramifications. This book has a lot of crude language, a lot of references to sex, there's nudity, there's a lot of violence, they're fighting monsters. This isn't necessarily a book for everyone. Monster in particular is sex obsessed. He has a girlfriend who's a succubus, and they have to have like sex every day, and he doesn't mind telling us about it. So this could definitely not be a book for everyone. But I also like the sarcastic, snarky attitude of Monster and some of the other characters, and just the overall tone of this book is hysterical. So like an excerpt here from page 18, which hopefully doesn't spoil anything. But I also can't really describe this humor without actually sharing it. Monster carries around a voodoo doll that he uses to communicate with his girlfriend. There's a spell on the doll that it acts like a cell phone or a walkie-talkie, basically. And so when his girlfriend wants to talk, the doll starts shrieking. And this is really annoying to Monster because it will continue to shriek until he actually answers it. There's no option to like ignore it. And it'll get up and follow him around. So he gets like really mad at it. So this leads to Monster's interaction with the doll. Monster snatched up the doll. "Listen, you stupid little bastard. I got the message already. Shut the hell up." He hurled it across the parking lot. The doll jumped to his feet and jogged back over. Wouldn't it just be easier to call her back? Asked Chester. Maybe. Monster raised his foot and prepared to stomp the stuffing out of the doll. But he came to his senses at the last moment. Destroying the doll would release the minor devil contained within. Although it couldn't do more than one small malicious act before returning to the underworld, it could still be a pain in the ass. The last time he'd lost control and destroyed one of Liz's dolls, he'd gotten a boil on his nose. And the one before that had taken all the fizz out of his sodas for a solid month. So, you got the snarky attitude of Monster, the crazy things that are happening, the way the world interacts. There's my introduction to this book. I love the way that the world, these weird things interact with our world. Like, just finding the Yeti in the freezer. But also, it's just a normal, randomly absurd things that are happening. It doesn't want to attack anybody. It doesn't want to do anything. It's just enjoying the cold freezer. And, hey, there's food in here, so I'm going to eat it. Apparently some kind of portal opened up, and that's how the Yeti got there. But just these creatures just show up in normal life and just wreak havoc. There's an instant where, these goat creatures are in Judy's apartment, and it's just, they're eating just everything in the apartment because they're goats. That kind of weird magic. I also like Chester and what he can do. The magic Monster is using to attack things is very much like drawing runes and making spells. But also he's driving around in, a normal car. And he's a human, so he has, a normal apartment. And so these weird things are happening, but it's also, normal stuff, too. That juxtaposition. I liked it. This is actually the first Ailey Martinez book I read, so I wouldn't reread it, because it was, 10 years ago before I started blogging. And it held up pretty well. The first time I read it, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Having read other fantasy and absurd novels, I think it's more like a 4 out of 5 now. Although I don't think I changed the Goodreads rating because, it's 4.5 maybe. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I will list links to other absurdist fantasy, Ailey Martinez's books that I've read. Go check them out. Peace out. I love you guys. I keep reading. Bye.